potato, and I got 2 hot tomatoes. Well, they'll make...
Episode 6 of Fionna and Cake is objectively the best one. Like, objectively. Fionna gets a sweet sword, Marshall and Gary bond in the snow, and most importantly, we meet Brian David the Winterking. We meet the Winterking. At first, I theorized the Winterking to be the Ice King, the spirit of the crown, removed from his insanity. But that kind of feels shallow. It removes Simon from his humanistic flaws and furthermore implicates Ice King as a true villain, when in reality, the Ice King is all but harmless. Ice King is a character. Simon Petrikov is a man.
I was once just like you.
The Winter King may be sane, but he's devious and controlling. Those traits are an extension of both a deep-seated darkness in Simon, I mean, look what he did to Choose, as well of his ignorance of others, particularly Betty's, feelings. Winter King's dismissal of Betty as the dead one is more in character for Simon than one may first think. While Simon's reaction of abject horror would lead you to believe that it wasn't at all like Simon to forget Betty, the crux of the show relies on Simon always putting himself and his wishes before Betty's. Betty sacrificed herself, launched into the maw of gold for just one last chance to save Simon. And her final wish, her last words, were a wish to keep him safe. The first chance he gets to see her again, he throws his life away, just for Fionna and Cake, completely undermining her sacrifice. Winter King's dismissal of the very idea of Betty is just the most extreme version of this idea. This disregarding of the love of his life speaks to a man whose original motivations were corrupted when he stripped PV of her sanity for his. This need for control manifests in our Simon with his pursuit of Betty. While going to the lengths of summoning Gulb just to see her loved one again may initially have the excuse of nobility, it's really just Simon grasping selfishly at the last shred of normality in his life. Winter King does everything in his power to make sure he's the one in control. While never shown in the non-icy flesh, this Simon had a Marcy, and you can imagine she wouldn't be pleased with his corruption of Princess Bubblegum. But on that train of thought, if the Winter King really was 100% Simon, wouldn't there be a nice Betty? This brings me back to his selfishness. The Winter King was on a selfish quest for sanity that only positively affected him, while leaving Princess Bubblegum crazy and the citizens of the Candy Kingdom as corrupted monsters. Now, you could argue that the Winter King's actions were a lingering effect of the Crown's induced madness, which, due to some of artist Steve Wolfhard's concepts, we know that the Crown's madness wasn't removed, just very dulled. Or maybe it was just that without the real Marceline, the Winter King was driven to a life of selfish solitude, not unlike our Ice King when Adventure Time began, and his Winter Wonder World was just the most ego-affirming way to live that life. Betty was the reminder of a better man, one who would object to corrupting PB and driving Marcy away, so she was put in Winter King's vault. The Winter Wonderworld itself is a bit of an odd quirk of the Winter King. It's the Ice Kingdom with a fancy coat of paint, complete with child prisoners and penguin peacocks. But why a kingdom? The good Dr. Petrikov never seemed to have any grand ambitions other than discovering the secrets of mystical artifacts. Now, you might say, this doesn't matter, and it doesn't. So like I said before, Steve Wolfhard confirmed that traces of the Crown's madness remained in the Winter King. I believe that his intrinsic desire to hoard penguins and create a kingdom are built into the Crown. The penguin's names being Gunther comes from the OG little dinosaur Gunther, and it's a theory of mine that the desire to collect penguins came from the original Santa, who was set up in the Arctic where he potentially had a pet penguin. Mix the love of penguins with a lonely little dinosaur named Gunther who vies for fatherly affection, and what do you get? Gunther the penguin. So, how does this tie into Winter King? It just goes to show that under the influence of the Crown, anyone can be corrupted, even if it doesn't show. Simon Petrikov wouldn't build a Winter Kingdom. The Winter King is Simon Petrikov, but he's also the Ice King. The Winter King is a caricature of a man. That's not to implicate our Simon of anything but being a bit selfish. The guy's a Riz king, and despite all that Betty lost, she said herself that she didn't regret a moment of their time together. And I didn't regret a moment of time I spent with Winter King, despite the horrors.
What's happening? My magic, it's gone!
Fionna, help me!